Welcome to the Clear Admit MBA Admissions Podcast. I'm Graham Richmond, and this is your WireTaps for Monday, April 11th, 2022. I'm joined by Alex Brown from Cornwall, England. Alex, how are things going?
I would say very good, Graham, but I got to turn off the news. Then I can say very good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I'm actually, on the optimistic side, I'm feeling good because next week, or when people are listening to this, I guess, or shortly after, we're going to be together in London. So first time we will have caught up with each other in many moons in person. And I, obviously haven't been to the UK since COVID. So I'm looking forward to hanging out with you next week.
That'd be brilliant. How many years has it been?
I don't even know.
It's years.
Yeah, I know we saw each other. We were doing some work for a business school in London, and we saw each other then. But that was before COVID, obviously. So, it's been at least 5 years, I want to say.
Yeah, no, fantastic.
So, and just for our listeners' benefit, we're going to be working on a kind of a secret project, but details will be forthcoming. But Alex and I are going to be spending some time together next week to do this project. So we'll keep everyone posted. But it should be fun.
It's called a secret project because if it fails before it's launched, we don't have to disclose what it was.
That's exactly right. But speaking of you and me and the show and everything, I did want to remind people that we really need your help in, rating the show, writing reviews, or even just telling your friends, anyone you know that's thinking of applying to business school. So that's the best way you can support the show. I've seen a lot of people leaving us great comments over on LiveWire and DecisionWire, thanking us for our help as they've kind of made the journey. And I would just ask those people to, share those thoughts up on Apple Podcasts where we can receive reviews, or at least rate us over at Amazon and Spotify or wherever you listen. We could definitely use the nudge. It always helps to build the audience, and it makes us feel good when we're broadcasting to as many people as possible. So keep that in mind. Alex, what's been going on the MBA admissions front? Are we out of the decision phase entirely now? I think most of the schools have announced, right?
Yeah, round two's in the bag. Last week, MIT Sloan, Cornell, but big focus on MIT Sloan. Early last week, last week sort of wraps it up. This week we continue with round three deadlines, which sort of started to trickle out the last couple of weeks. But for example, tomorrow it's Stanford, Sloan, Yale, Anderson, and Johnson. So we've got plenty of activity for those folks that are targeting round three. Maybe folks that are either late into the cycle. To consider the MBA, but also folks readjusting their strategy based off of their rounds 1 and 2 results. Maybe taking a flyer in round 3 on some top programs. Why not? So we're pretty much midway through the application season now for round 3.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And, this is not a bad year to look at round 3, especially if, either you struck out in the previous rounds or you have kind of run the table and you want to, as you say, take a flyer on a third round option. It can't hurt. This is a year where schools have been a little surprised, frankly. I mean, the discussions I've had with admissions directors have suggested some surprise at the, slightly lower volume of applications. And so I think they're always looking for good candidates. And so if you're kind of underrepresented in the pool in some way, shape, or form and think that you could fill a hole that the school might be trying to fill in their class, then round 3, might be a good idea. And there's still some deadlines left. So take a look at that. For those of you who are sitting on... go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I just also add one additional point. Round 3 is much shorter. And what I mean by that is the turnaround for interview invites is going to be much quicker and getting the results. So, for example, Wharton, who had a round 3 deadline a couple of weeks ago, they're actually rolling out their interview invites next week on Thursday.
Yeah, it's much faster. That's a good point. For those of you who already have decisions and are now in the process of debating where to go, or even, you've already put your money down or whatever it might be, or for those of you who just were, tuned in this year and didn't end up applying for one reason or another, we're actually running a survey on our website and we really need your help. And we're giving out actually a $400 Apple or Amazon gift card to one person who completes the survey. We're going to do a drawing, and then we're also giving out a whole mess of $20 Amazon cards as well to other folks who fill it out. So take a look at the survey. You can access it at bit.ly/CA survey 2022. and that's all lowercase. So check out the survey. It'll be a great way for you to weigh in on your decision-making process, and it should take only 10 minutes to fill out. And then, Alex, you've been monitoring our users, people on the site. We have those likes that users can earn, members of the community, as they kind of seek and receive appreciation for the comments they leave. They kind of amass these points. How's that been going?
Yeah, I mean, it always goes good. I mean, I've got, I don't know, myself, Graham, I got over 1,000 likes. I know you're lagging and slacking, but
I know.
I will tell you, by the time this podcast is released, I will no longer be the top of the leaderboard in terms of likes. That will, by that point, be Elliot.
Wow.
It's either tomorrow or the next day. He will eclipse me, because Elliot provides great advice on DecisionWire entries for those choosing between schools. Highest liked community member outside of Clearimit is also very active on DecisionWire, offering great insight. And actually, we're profiling a DecisionWire entry later on this show where he or she does a real deep dive in helping a candidate think about sort of investment banking choices amongst schools. So yeah, we're running a little contest, a little bit of fun to sort of incentivize a few more folks to sort of participate and hopefully nudge those likes above 30, 60 and 90 likes, which gets you your 1, 2 or 3 stars. And I think, Graham, you guys are giving away pretty good gift cards, right?
Yeah, we're giving away more Amazon cards. So it's like $10 if you hit your 30 likes, 20 for 60, and a $50 gift card if you get to 90, which isn't really that hard. If you're leaving comments and people like your comments, you're going to quickly amass those likes. Other than that, Alex, before we get into the candidates, I had a couple of things that I wanted to highlight just on the kind of MBA news and notes front. We profiled a couple of real humans on the website, one of whom is a woman named Gabrielle Alves, and she is a Michigan Ross grad. She graduated in 2020, so she's actually been in the workforce for a little while now, and she is an investment banking associate at Morgan Stanley. She's originally from Jersey. She had been in retail merchandising before going to Ross, and did her undergrad at Northwestern. And, we interviewed her, asked her for tips and all about the recruiting process for banking. And she also, we always ask them for advice. And as I've been doing the last couple of weeks, I wanted to share her thoughts. She just said, during business school, there is a lot of anxiety around recruiting, and it's important to remind yourself that it will all work out. Also, don't forget to take advantage of all the developmental experiences and opportunities that are at your disposal on campus. So some nice advice from Gabrielle. And I think, she does make a really good point. People get so amped up about recruiting, but every time we look at the career reports, it's like 96% of the people looking for jobs have an offer within 3 months of graduation. And it's usually 100% a few months after that. So there's really, people land, they get jobs, it's not a challenge, at least not these days. But that was kind of fun I don't know if you read that one, but she was a good profile for the site.
No, absolutely fantastic. Yeah. And I'm sure that anxiety can be, when you combine that with things like imposter syndrome and various other things, and I can see why you're nervous. These are big stakes, but at the end of the day, it all works out.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other guy that we profiled is this guy named Brian Guo. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. Guo, Guo. He's a graduate of Cornell Johnson, class of 19. So again, someone who's been in the workforce for a couple of years now. And he's also an investment banking associate at JP Morgan, also from New Jersey. So I don't know if Lauren, our editor-in-chief, is doing this on purpose, but it was really, kind of nice to see 2 profiles in banking in the same week. So for people interested in that domain, it's really useful. This guy used to work in wealth and asset management before business school, and actually is a graduate of the College of New Jersey. And we asked him for his advice as well, and he said time management is important, and manage your FOMO. Fear of missing out. And he said there will not be a dearth of clubs, events, activities, treks, and friends to occupy your precious time. So you should make sure that you fully understand what you want out of your 2 years in business school and select activities that align yourself with those goals. These goals could be oriented around your career, health, education, hobbies, or social. And you should try and reserve like 80% of your time towards supporting these goals. Then leave the other 20% of your time for random activities and allow yourself to be open to new experiences and relationships. It's important to be focused on your goals, but you should also allow some room for the universe's randomness, which may delightfully surprise you with things that you didn't know you would love. So that was a really nice quote from him, I thought.
No, it's really, really super interesting. It brings up two really interesting points. One is how we really focus on the importance of knowing, having your goals and your plan and knowing what you want to do before you go for the MBA. And that's part of the admissions process. That's really important. But the second element sort of reminds me of maybe you're working at one of these top firms like Amazon, and maybe they give you 5 or 10% of your time to go off and do something innovative, outside of your core mandate for where you're working. I don't know if Amazon still does stuff like that. But, but super, super interesting.
Yeah, so this is why it's fun to talk to grads of these top programs and to see where they are, a year or 2 years, out. So the last thing I wanted to get to before we review the candidates is London Business School released their careers report. And so really quickly, I'm just going to give you the facts and figures that we've done with all the U.S. schools as we've gone through these. And so for LBS, 38% of the graduating class went into consulting, 26% into financial services, 26% tech, and then 3% consumer retail, 3% industrials. So that's kind of the industry stuff. Anything stick out to you, Alex?
I mean, the big three.
Yeah.
They're clearly taking up a huge chunk of the candidates: tech, banking, and consulting. Consulting, that's a large number. I thought maybe a little bit more on the financial services, but consulting is very big.
Yeah, I mean, literally 90% of their graduating class that was looking for work, at least, landed in one of those three sectors, which is, that's a bit more than what we see in other schools. But, obviously they're having no trouble placing people. In terms of the regional stuff, 52% of the graduates landed in the UK, 13% in Asia, 10% Europe, 9% Latin America, 9% North America. Africa and the Middle East had 5%, and Oceania had 2%. So obviously very different than what we see from American schools in that while there is some concentration in the home country, in that 52% with the UK, it's nothing like the roughly 90 or 95% concentration we see with US programs where most people are landing in the US. So really cool to see how LBS graduates are scattering really to all corners of the globe. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me though, Graham, in as much as these international programs overseas from America, they're drawing candidates, a very global student body in the first place, right? So their home country is not the dominant culture necessarily in the class.
Yeah.
And that's then also reflected in terms of where they're going afterwards. It's interesting, there's 52% UK, at 10% the rest of Europe. I'm wondering if that sort of proportion has shifted any with the sort of Brexit stuff that's come in. So I don't know if we could look back at trends from prior years and sort of look at that, because potentially without Brexit it might have been easier to get a job in sort of continental Europe out of LBS and stuff. Who knows? I'm just speculating, but I'm keen to know what the average starting salary is, Graham.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you in 1 second. The thing, just to go back to your comment there, I know that one of the things that's changed is that the UK in the last couple of years has now allowed anyone to stay who does an MBA to stay for, I believe it's 2 years, if not 3. And so I wonder if that's influencing things too.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We'd have to go back and look at the data around European placements, kind of EU placements. Starting salaries, the mean salary for the class in US dollars was $114,000, so a bit lower than the US schools, which we know often clock in at 130, 140, even a little bit more. But, again, salaries do tend to be a little bit lower in Europe, and that's where a lot of these candidates are landing. The other thing that I loved is that LBS shares some stats that I don't think I've seen other schools sharing as much, and they basically tell you that 53% of their graduates moved to a new location upon graduation from where they were prior, and 50% switched their sector, Nearly a third of the class, 31%, changed both location and job sector when they graduated. So again, there's this whole theme around mobility and internationalism, with LBS that you would expect. So very cool stuff. It's nice to see these reports continue to trickle out. Other than that, Alex, let's get into the candidates. I did want to say we have some events coming up in May. We'll get the dates to you soon, but they're going to be sort of like every Wednesday night in May, where we're going to be sitting down with admissions directors, usually from anywhere from 3 to 5 top business schools on a kind of basically like a, sort of a almost like a mini fair where we'll pepper them with questions and, kind of a panel. And we've done these before. They're wildly popular, so you're going to want to sign up once we get the details out there. I've seen a sneak preview of the schools that are joining us, and it includes, institutions like Wharton and Chicago Booth and LBS and INSEAD and Columbia, Yale. I mean, the list goes on. It's a sort of a who's who of top MBA programs. So stay tuned on that. Other than that, Alex, are you ready to get into our candidates?
Yeah, let's kick on.
All right, so this is WireTaps candidate number 1. So this week's first candidate is an ApplyWire entry, and it's a candidate that is looking not to start business school until like 2024 because they are a deferred enrollment prospect. They've got 7 schools on their target list, and those schools are Berkeley, Columbia, Harvard, MIT, Stanford, Chicago, and Wharton. They are going to be working in consulting when they graduate from college because they are currently a college senior. I believe they have an offer at Deloitte, so they're going to be working at Deloitte. After business school, they're really interested in impact investing and particularly like strategy around impact investing, or maybe even something within private equity or real estate. So they have some ideas post-MBA. They have a 730 on the GMAT and a 3.7 GPA, which we learned in the comments is from a kind of top 40 US college. They're located in Massachusetts, and they are a big fan of the podcast. They literally say, big fan of the podcast, and that they're a college senior applying for deferred enrollment. So, Alex, I know we both had some back and forth with this candidate. What do you think? I mean, given that they're deferred enrollment, what do you make of their chances and their candidacy here?
Yeah, I mean, like many of our deferred enrollment candidates, some of whom we featured on WireTaps, but posting to ApplyWire, on paper they're outstanding, right? So you've got, this person's got a 3.7 GPA, and business computer science, is active at at their university, has done 3 internships, presumably done very well. There's sort of engineering business and so on and so forth. To me, it looks like they've made the most of where they're at and done very well. Their overall GMAT 730, so that's right on the median of top programs. So that's very good. They've already got an offer in hand at Deloitte. So on paper it looks really good, Graham. What a candidate like this needs to do, in my mind, Graham, and you can sort of talk to this or refute it or whatever. They've got to think, all right, I'm competing for a few spaces in some of the very elite programs through this deferral admissions process. Other folks competing, some of whom will have gone, will be coming at it from going to an Ivy League, from an Ivy League program, similar GPA, similar sort of successes, and maybe they've got an offer at Amazon or MBB, and so on and so forth. So, and I guess the point I'm making here is there'll be some other folks that maybe have some more fortunate circumstance, but have a slightly higher bit of sort of stardust attached to what they've done. So what that means to me is, for a candidate like this, they need to make sure everything that they present is absolutely at its best. So I'm sort of dialing down into this GMAT score. They got a 730. That's a great score, and very unusual for us to recommend someone reconsider taking a test at 730. But the quant of the GMAT is only the 59th percentile. It's a 44 number, which is surprising given that they're a computer science. They've probably done a lot of analytical work and so on and so forth. So unless this candidate did spend lots and lots of hours prepping and really does believe this is their best score, it might well be worth tackling the GMAT again with more preparation. Because you can imagine, Graham, if they did retake the GMAT, they bumped up that quant score, everything else stayed the same. They ended up with a 760 or 770 on the GMAT, combined with everything else. They absolutely belong at the very top table, potentially. So that's my only sort of pushback.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I think the way that I look at it is schools offer early decision or sorry, deferred enrollment because they want to snatch up the best and brightest.
Yeah.
But they also, I think, are looking at this candidate sometimes through the lens of, could we wait on this candidate and see how they look in a couple of years, knowing that many of these people are going to apply regular if they don't get in. And so that's and that's where you get into this issue of, well, did they go to a good enough school? Is there enough, as you say, stardust attached to their candidacy? With that said, I think one of the ways that's really great to stand out is in maturity. And so if this candidate knows that and can really come in with a good head on their shoulders with respect to their goals, what they're hoping to get out of their time at Deloitte, how it kind of relates to what they want to do in the longer term, that could earn them a number of points. But I do agree with you that I would like to see, while a 730 hits the averages at most all of the schools on their target list, my view is that a deferred enrollment candidate often needs to kind of bat above that in order to, argue that, hey, you should take me early because I'm actually, that much better. So I think if they could retake and boost the quant score, it would be helpful. So I agree with you there. But again, this candidate, they seem to know. I mean, I feel like they have a really good head on their shoulders because they say things like, I know there are no safeties on my list. I'm going to apply to these schools. And if I don't get in, I'll just apply regular decision after a couple of years of work. So I feel like they have the right approach here. But yeah, it's one of those things where I would love to see a high level of maturity. I would love for recommendation letters to speak to that as well. And then, we'll just see that. I mean, they got 7 schools on the list. You never know. What a relief it would be to get into one of these top schools early. Always helpful, right? So in terms of how they can then map out their career and not have to stress about applying later. So anyway, it's a really interesting candidacy for these reasons of, the nuance in it around, how they can sort of stand out in a arguably crowded field for these deferred spots.
Was that sports reference to cricket or baseball?
Which one?
You said batting at something.
Oh yeah, that's baseball. Yeah, we talk about like batting above the average, basically. Yeah. Although I guess you have the same thing in cricket, right?
Who knows?
You don't watch any cricket.
Yeah, but I completely agree with you. The other thing, let's say they do get a spot in one or two of these programs. And that would be great. It takes the pressure off, but it shouldn't stop them targeting the very top of their list in that couple of years' time.
Sure.
When they come back at it, if they choose to come back at it. So
that's true.
So yeah, lots to like here. I hate to be sort of putting me down a little bit. My overall point is, as a candidate looking at the deferred option, you want to make sure you present your very best all the way across the board. And if you don't think that your test score is at its very best, go and do what you can to get another test score in under the wire. Even if it's after you apply, you could tell the AdCom that another test is forthcoming.
Yeah.
Whatever. But yeah. Best of luck, and it's a good strategy. Don't be applying to safety schools as a deferred candidate. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, agreed. Alex, just going back to this whole sports stuff, does this mean you're not taking me to Lord's cricket grounds next, like when we're in London? I thought maybe that you would that would be something we could do while I was there, but maybe it's not not on your list of things to do in London, I guess.
I think we'll give that one a miss and just go to the pub.
All right, that sounds good. Okay, so let's move on. I want to thank that person for their post and for the kind words about the podcast. Let's move on and talk about WireTaps candidate number 2. So this is another ApplyWire entry. And again, it's from a younger candidate, but it is a candidate who's already in the workforce and is going to be applying regular decision via the kind of cycle next season. So they're going to apply next fall and hope to start in the fall of 23. They've got a whopping 9 schools on their target list for now, and those schools are Berkeley, Cornell, Harvard, MIT, Kellogg, NYU, Chicago Booth, Wharton, and UT Austin McCombs. They are working in engineering, and they want to get into technology and maybe an entrepreneurship after business school. They've got a 750 on the GMAT and a 3.85 GPA. They will have had 2 years of work experience when they matriculate, and they gave us a lot of background. I mean, they do, they've got some good extracurriculars, all that stuff, and you got into a conversation with them about how much employment they have, and I want you to shed some light on that because they are a younger candidate. You had some exchange with them around what it means to be a younger candidate, and also there's something unique about them with respect to their promotion and where they are in their career. So maybe you can shed some light on that as we kind of get into discussing this one.
Yeah, I mean, let's be frank here. This is a potential superstar. You say the numbers 750 in GMAT, 385 GPA, I mean, and an engineer, right? So, they're clearly wicked smart, as we like to say, and that kind of stuff. And they've done very well at work. I mean, it looks like they've got promoted ahead of schedule. Significantly, they're leading a project that involves, quote unquote, tens of millions in assets, and so on and so forth. So to me, all that is extremely positive. The big kicker here is, if they apply with 2 years of work experience, I mean, they've been promoted, I get that, and they got promoted well ahead of schedule, I get that. But if they're applying with 2 years of work experience, let's say they were successful and they got into a couple of top 10s and 1 or 2 M7s, and that's the sort of programs they've got on their target list. I mean, frankly, Graham, if they don't get into Harvard, Stanford, or Wharton, I don't know if it was a smart strategy on their part. The key is they need to apply when they have their maximum chance of getting into the very best programs that they could possibly get into. So I would absolutely encourage them to apply this upcoming season, and maybe the very elite programs will make a play for them because they've got so much upside potential. But that's what it'll be based on for the most part, upside potential that they can show. So that's basically where I'm going at with this candidate. This candidate belongs in a very, very top program, I think, Graham.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things that's interesting, and this is a common theme that we see, and that it is, as an admissions officer, I loved seeing, is the engineer who quickly realizes once they're in the workforce that they want to be involved in more aspects of the enterprise. And so they start to pivot towards the business side. And they explicitly state that, that they kind of realize that, they're interested in the leadership aspects and the, kind of applying their engineering background in, kind of a management capacity. And so they talk about wanting to get into maybe a tech-focused startup or, doing some management with a large tech company or something. So they want to kind of meld this sort of engineering background with a kind of interest in management. And so that's good to hear. I think that's, makes a lot of sense. They have terrific numbers, as you underlined. I feel like you say, they can roll the dice, try to get into a top school this time round. They went on about how they've been promoted into a level that normally is reserved for those who have kind of had 3 years of experience. So they were kind of underlining that. And I think that's fine. And hopefully the recommenders will speak to that. But I don't think that means that the admissions reader is going to be like, oh, well, we see they have 2 years of experience, but really we're going to call it 3. That doesn't quite work that way.
Right.
I think it's obviously they'll earn some points for maturity and success in their career and things, but we'll see where the chips fall. I do agree with you. If they don't get into kind of, let's say, an M7 type school, they might be selling themselves short. Just, they could probably work another year and get in that way. But I'm hopeful that with good execution and a clear set of goals and, just everything falls right, that, as you say, a top school is going to jump on them because they have such stellar stats and an upside. So I think it could work out. But yeah, they just need to know that going in.
I think it can work out. I do think that this candidate, the recommendations will be very important. They need to really be full of substance about the maturity of the candidate, the potential of the candidate, and so on and so forth. I think that's going to be very important. I don't think this candidate should apply to any safety schools. Really, even if they're desperate to get their MBA after 2 years of work experience, I would suck it up and work another year and not include any safety schools this season. Because at the end of the day, there's no point in applying to a school that you wouldn't enroll in if that was your only option, right? What was the point in doing that? So narrow this when they narrow their list down, narrow it from the bottom up.
Yeah.
Or if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I can speak firsthand. I when I applied to business school, I applied to a school that, it was a great school, and I'm not going to name the school, but I got in there and I was like waitlisted everywhere else first time out, and I almost went to that school, and I did not end up going. And then the question became, well, why did I spend all that time if I wasn't going to go there? So yeah, focus on the schools you would attend. That's kind of criteria number one. But in any event, I want to thank this person for their post. And yeah, wish them the best of luck. They can keep us posted as things evolve, and keep listening to the show, and we'll see how things unfold. But best of luck to them. Alex, let's move on to our last candidate. This is WireTaps candidate number 3. So this is a DecisionWire entry, and yet again, it's a person who's undecided. We love to kind of debate these on the show. This person applied to Columbia, Stern, Rice, UCLA, and UT Austin. And they ended up getting into Rice with a $60,000 scholarship. They got into UCLA Anderson with $70,000, and they also got into McCombs with $40,000 in scholarship. They did not get into Columbia or Stern. They're going to be entering business school this fall. They really would like to work in investment banking, and their GMAT score was a 730. They're located in Texas. They talk about, goals being with kind of a bulge bracket investment bank, and they're also kind of interested in private equity and venture capital. They're wanting to kind of explore that stuff, maybe through a venture fellowship, and they really want to be in an entrepreneurial environment. That's what they say in their note. They have some experience before business school where they were a founder and an investor, but they really want to kind of get their hands dirty with, kind of get into the nuts and bolts of things with some banking work before they go back and get into private equity or something. So they have this debate between these 3 schools, Rice, UCLA, and Austin. I don't know, Alex, there was a lot of good kind of comments, again, from one of our 3-star contributors on the site who seems to know a lot about banking placements. But what do you make of this? I mean, here's someone with, they want to work in investment banking in the short term, and they've got these offers from Rice, UCLA, and UT Austin.
Yeah, quite honestly, on the surface, I would look at Anderson in front of in front of the Texas schools. I mean, it is we would consider in a tier above. Obviously in the long run they want to be in Texas, but I think and according to our commenter who knows much more about the investment banking industry than I do, that they'll be able to laterally move back to Texas. The key is to get that first position in investment banking, and presumably Anderson would provide them access to do that. So I would default more naturally to thinking that Anderson is the best choice. But the reason why I chose this entry is to really encourage our listeners to go to DecisionWire and sort of make the most of this tool, whether you're looking at how other folks have made decisions, or you're looking at getting support through your own sort of decision making. The feedback from this commenter, we'll call them Anon10646, is just outstanding. Yeah, they clearly know this industry. They've been through the recruiting process. I think they're a first year. They've recruited for internships. And I could have completely misread that. But that's what I get after reading a lot of their comments over the last several weeks. For me, it looks like it's Anderson. But if you want to, if listeners want to know the detail of this, I mean, I encourage them to go to DecisionWire and take a good read. Bring a cup of coffee because it'll take some time.
Yeah, it is a tricky debate in the sense that, I mean, most would argue that Anderson is, typically ranks a little bit ahead of McCombs, but they obviously have their regional strength. I just think that as Anon 10646, I know we have these kind of silly handles for people who are anonymous on the site, but as that person commented, there's a lot more, a kind of a broader array is the word that they used of the bulge bracket banks in LA and San Fran than there would be down in Houston. But, there's also this, do you want to be the big fish in a smaller pond where, there's less battling for spots in Houston than there would be out west. But I can't help but think that the money comes into play here too. I mean, there's almost double the money coming from Anderson. It's the higher ranked school. Their spouse has a job offer, potentially, ability to work in LA too. And they could work in Austin. But I just think things seem to be aligning towards Anderson for this one. But it's interesting. I mean, obviously, I kind of, part of me was wondering, like, when I looked at the list of schools, like, where was Johnson? Where was, maybe even Wharton or Booth or, some of these schools that are also really strong in the banking placements. But, they needed to apply, I think, in markets where maybe their spouse could work too. So they might have been limited. But it's, it is what it is. And I think it's an interesting debate. And it does absolutely underline the strength of some of the folks on our site in terms of their ability to comment and offer such great advice. So we really appreciate that. Definitely.
Yeah, no, absolutely fantastic. And best of luck to this candidate, and congratulations on the offers.
Yeah, 3 offers, all with money. Always nice to see.
Yeah.
So, Alex, thanks for picking these out. I'm really looking forward to hanging out with you over the course of this week in London and working on our secret project. But yeah, we'll be back to record an episode for the following week too. So everyone stay tuned. You'll still have your wiretaps even if Alex and I are at the pub all next week.
Very good. Stay safe, everyone. Good luck.